Alliance. We all know the alt-right was created by Steve Bannon and Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, you're right. Not the SPLC.
I mean, it wasn't created by the SPLC. The SPLC reacted to it and found like some dummies and scumbags that were involved in it, and one of them took money, and yeah.
Okay, and welcome back to IDSG, the podcast that inadvertently lathe of heavened the world to the brink of disaster. I really should have checked that I didn't have any genie's lamps lying around before I started doing this podcast. Sorry about that, everybody. Daniel, how's everything over there?
Well,
in America specifically.
In America, well, I mean, it's America in 2026, and I'm of the left. So, I mean, if I were a wealthy banker's class or an arms dealer, I'd be doing peachy keen right now. But
or an oil corporation.
Or an oil corporation, a sentient oil corporation, the best kind, really.
They are legally people. So
yeah. I do live in a blue state, which does help. I am very lucky to live in a blue state because people that I care about do not, and are dealing with things much worse than I do. So I have I have resources available to me that other people do not. So it's better than it could be.
Absolutely. Okay, so this episode is going to be largely, I think, about the SPLC thing.
Yes.
We do want to start by touching on the end, sadly, of the Knowledge Fight podcast. Obviously, in response to the fact that InfoWars finally came to an end and has been bought out by the Onion. That long-running story has finally kind of reached its terminus, and then very suddenly it was announced, much to my disappointment and sadness, that the Knowledge Fight podcast, which has been going longer than us and literally thousands of episodes,
I think it's like 1,400 episodes or something in total. It's insane amount of work. So
I think we just kind of want to say, thanks to Dan and Jordan, and congratulations on that, and best wishes for the future. Really,
I don't know either of them. I'm not friends with either of them. Just to be clear, I had like passing interactions with Dan, here and there over the years. There was talk about maybe doing a guest spot, but it just kind of never came to anything. Anyway, they're both super talented guys. Whatever they end up doing, they're going to be successful at. I'm very certain. And I kind of get the sense that like maybe they were ready to be done. So I don't know. I've seen in like the Knowledge Fight subreddit. People are very sad about it, and I get it. But so when the creatives have decided it's time to be done, it's time to let it go. That's the feeling I get.
So then, it's impossible to do a news roundup because news just sort of.
I was going to do this one as a news roundup, and then like the news just happened enough that it was like, well, I can't.
Keeps happening.
Well, and right. I mean, it's still going. I mean,
it's Todd Blanche on his quest to be made the long-term AG instead of acting AG, and he's on a full bore suck up to Donald Trump agenda. And he's launched a kind of revenge tour. The Justice Department is going to spend all its time apparently launching gratuitous investigations and prosecute. I mean, it was doing this before, don't get me wrong, it's not just him. Bondi was doing this too, but it's going to spend all its time launching gratuitous prosecutions and indictments against people that Donald Trump doesn't like James Comey and also apparently the SPLC. But of course, the SPLC has been a bugbear of the right in America for a very long time. I did a little bit of preparatory Googling on this, and I found sort of hit pieces on the SPLC in National Review and the Washington Post and the Heritage Foundation going back almost 10 years.
Longer than that. But but that's certainly about 10 years ago is kind of when it starts to really ramp up. I wonder why. Sometime in 2016, they started to attack a little bit extra. I think we might talk about that a little bit as we move forward. But yes, no.
So they've launched an attempt to prosecute the SPLC as an organization.
This is a criminal indictment, not a civil suit. To be clear, so this is
fraud, isn't it?
For fraud, although they apparently have no single individual who claims to have been defrauded, which I think is an important detail.
That's kind of big. kind of a problem.
I'll link to the lawsuit. I'll link to the text of the lawsuit so you can read the indictment in your. And again, I'm not a lawyer. Jack and I are not lawyers here, so we're gonna tread lightly on this. But I did leave some links of people kind of discussing the kind of the legal theory here and everything. And I've read it, and I kind of get. I think the more interesting thing is more the culture around it than the lawsuit itself. And so we're going to kind of tread a little bit lightly on the lawsuit itself, because other people can do that better. But effectively,
it's an indictment, not a lawsuit.
Right, exactly. Did I say lawsuit? I meant indictment. I apologize.
Yeah, just for clarity.
Yeah. No. Shows you how good I am at talking about these things extemporaneously.
Yeah.
Dan would have had a script.
Can't stress this enough. We are neither of us lawyers in any sort of conceivable sense.
Yeah, but I have listened to every episode of 5-4 Pod twice, so
Oh, that's as good. I mean,
just as good. Honestly, I think there are things I probably know better than the fucking lawyers at this point.
I watched a lot of Law and Order. I feel like
I have watched a lot of Law and Order. Jack and I have threatened each other at eventually doing some kind of project based around Law and Order. It's like, no, I'm going to do it to you. No, I'm doing it to you, you asshole. Anyway, for our sins. Anyway, so this is an indictment. It is an indictment for fraud, alleging that the SPLC was advertising its, that it was trying to defeat kind of far right, extreme right people, while at the same time funding these people through grants and through payouts. Now, the reality is, everybody knows they were doing this, and there's a lot of language that you get here is like, well, they were paying they were infiltrating people into these hate groups, etc. And it's like, no, they were paying people who were already there, who were willing to give information to the SPLC, who probably still believed in the thing but needed a few extra bucks. Now, one thing that is really astonishing here is just the size of some of the payouts. Apparently, it's about $2.7 million over 2 years is what they kind of alleged in the indictment. One individual appears to have gotten $1 million over the course of that 10 years. So that's $100,000 a year to give. I hope that person gave a shitload of information that was very actionable to this other property law center. I don't think it's possible to provide enough information for that to be worth it. So I mean, as a civil lawsuit, if it was I gave this money to the SPLC and these numbers are unconscionable to me, then I could see that being a civil lawsuit. It makes it difficult for me to believe this is going to be a serious indictment, that this is ever going to lead to a conviction. Although under the Trump Justice Department, who knows? Although this was done by the central the middle Alabama court, because the SPLC is located in Montgomery, Alabama, very near where I grew up, believe it or not. That is a local district, so it is kind of funneled through that legal regime. And so I don't know, I point you to, and I will have these links in the show notes, to Michael Edison Hayden, who worked for the SPLC at a fairly high level position for about 5 years. He has a lot of shit to talk about the SPLC. Namely about their union busting and that they wouldn't let him do his fucking job. It was a lot of it. They were very liberal coded, very unwilling to actually go after bad people when they should have been able to go after bad people. So
I think it is worth gesturing at this. The SPLC is very far from being a perfect organization. In fact,
very
there's
far.
An awful lot of criticism from the left. I remember Alexander Coburn's devastating Nation article about the SPLC, and there's lots of criticism. There's the leadership got very wealthy doing this job, and there was a lot of sexual harassment and abuse in the workplace, the anti-union stuff. They as well as broader political critiques that I think are very valid about what they choose to focus on and how they present their data.
And this whole idea about lawfare, I think, is something that got very questionable. It's like, oh, you're going to sue these organizations, you're going to spend tens of millions of dollars on lawyers instead of educational campaigns, instead of protecting victims, instead of there's a lot of institutional anti-racism is always among people who kind of do the more ground level work. It was always been kind of a bugbear. It's man, I wonder if there was somebody else who could have used that money than a very well paid lawyer. I wonder, maybe there might have been other people who might have used like a tenth of that money to do good work, but I don't know. We shall never know. Now, to my knowledge, I've never received any money from the SPLC. I don't know, maybe sometimes a grad student would drop me $50 as an honorarium for giving them some information or whatever. It's possible they were funded by the SPLC, but I never got any money from the SPLC. I never was employed by the SPLC, and I never like really reached out seriously in terms of trying to do that, just to let you know. So this is not like sour grapes on my part or anything like that. But it was it had its uses, it had its good points. I think there's a lot of really great information and a lot of really great researchers went through there, but as an organization it kind of sucked, but it didn't suck in this way. That's kind of the issue. It's like you're going after the Southern Poverty Law Center, you're swinging at this organization with so many flaws, and this is what you landed on. I know why they landed on it, but this is like the one thing in which, like, yeah, this is just not credible. Ultimately, yeah, I don't get this at all. Anyway,
I think The Intercept had an article where they actually got the donors, actual donors to the SPLC, and they said, no, this is what we expected them to do with the money.
Yeah,
this is what we thought they were going to do with the money. It's fine.
Yeah, no. Well, especially it's not like we had. I mean, God, I put it in the show notes just so that people can laugh at this. You remember the Time for Some Game Theory guy on Twitter back in the day, Eric Garland?
Yeah.
He's convinced this is like a secret, like super spy organization. These people are like operatives, like deep plant CIA people who have been like placed in these things for 10 years. You can't have an operative for 10 years that's in this kind of danger and not be it like a professional spy. This is like, no. It's just some dipshit Nazi who wants to rat out on his buddies. That's all this is. That's all this is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And Nazis have always been like that. Trust me.
Nazis are always
right
like that.
The way through.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
Right. The way 100 years ago they were like this.
Absolutely. So more interestingly, I think is and I think I don't know, like differently interestingly, because I think the lawsuit, the indictment is its own. It has its interest points, and we will probably cover it as we can over the however long it lasts. 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, who knows? I don't know. I don't think this is going anywhere. But anyway, I think what we wanted to get into was more how the lawsuit is used as a rhetorical device among the various factions of the right in kind of like U.S. far right culture today. And so our
have the right been spinning this in some sort of propagandistic ideological way then?
Oh, yes.
To just further their agenda. And next you're going to be telling me that they've completely misrepresented the facts and come up with a completely fake narrative.
Well, it's actually really interesting is like, the actual Nazis are much closer to the truth than the pretend to be not Nazis. In the opening of this, our cold open was the Daily Shoah boys. Two of them marched in Charlottesville, Unite the Right. Like, to be clear, prominent, like, celebrated members. Mike Pianovich, Mike Enoch's name was on the freaking poster of Unite the Right, and they're calling it a whole locale thing because of the way that the right wingers have been discussing this. We're not going to talk a whole lot about them today because our very next episode, by that point, they will have recorded their episode 1488, and I decided we're going to do one more episode on these dipshits, and that'll be the end of it. And we're just going to do whatever they do for 1488. It's going to be our episode. So it's just going to be a kiss my ass goodbye, Mike Enoch, from me, because I am sick of thinking about these assholes. Anyway, so we'll get to them, in another episode. We'll kind of talk a little bit more because they're talking about some shit, but more interesting people are here. So we're going to talk basically about 4 people today. Matt Walsh, Jack Posobiec, John Doyle, and James Edwards.
Sorry. We're going to have to stop the podcast because you said Matt Walsh and I died of boredom on the spot.
Well, I regret to inform you, I have a 4-minute clip of Matt Walsh talking.
Oh, okay.
Of which I already told Jack, you're going to have to cut a little bit of this. I wanted to give you the context to kind of figure out what goes and what doesn't based on where the conversation is. But Matt, we're talking about, I follow Matt Walsh quite closely these days. So I don't know, introduce the audience to those who may not know who Matt Walsh is. Who is Matt Walsh?
Matt Walsh is a weirdo and a Nazi and a liar
Yep.
who is paid by Ben Shapiro to be a Nazi and a weirdo and a liar and a Christo-fascist lunatic and a misogynist, um, and just spew non-stop insane right-wing nonsense.
Yes.
That's pretty much it, I think. Transphobia, pretty much the entire gamut, really.
Notable presence
He's the
in all the
he's what is
Daily
a woman
Wire.
guy. If
Yeah,
if you've heard of him tangentially, you'll have heard of him as the guy that made the quote unquote "What is a woman" quote unquote documentary.
I thought about covering that. It was just there's no. I'm not putting you through that. I've watched it. I'm not putting you through it.
He's also a real weirdo.
He's a real.
He's just weird. He's just this, and I don't use that word necessarily pejoratively. I like weirdos. Weirdos are my people. I'm a weirdo. He's a weirdo in the bad way. He's just one of those people that just gives you the creeps. Just seriously. The only thing that stops it being overpowering is that he's so prodigiously boring.
Yeah, no, it does help to listen to him at 2x speed. I will give you that. And only listen for 10, 15 minutes at a time. Just get the high points and kind of skip the rest. But yeah, so his was the first episode that I saw after the dropping of this indictment. And so I thought, and he had like the best summary of kind of the broad, like how the kind of mainstream Ben Shapiro right is kind of covering this thing at this point.
Of course, because that's what he is. He's a machine for producing that content. He's like human Chat GPT trained to talk like the Daily Wire. That's basically what he is.
Well, if anything, based on the clips I have, the Jack Posobiec is even worse. So we have listeners. Believe me, I will be pausing this. We will be commenting during the process because otherwise it will be interminable. But so this is the very beginning. This is like right after the theme music ends. Matt Walsh talking about this, about the indictment. I keep saying lawsuit, but if I say lawsuit, I know I get it wrong. But and one of the reasons this is so long is because it goes to some very interesting places towards the end. So just be aware this is going to go places, but I promise. But it takes a minute.
If you've ever thought that everything is a giant psyop, that major events, the kind that dictate the course of American politics, are all fake and engineered, then the news that broke yesterday was as close to a total vindication as you'll ever get. On the other hand, if you thought that color revolutions only happen overseas and that America is immune from successful campaigns of mass deception, all orchestrated by corrupt political actors to mimic natural grassroots events, then this is a story that you need to hear. The Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, was supposedly the defining moment of Donald Trump's first term in office. That's what
was it?
Yeah,
was it really?
I no, I mean, I could name a whole lot of things that are, he named 3 Supreme Court justices, among other things. I mean, that's the first thing that comes to mind for me.
There was also the little matter of, the pandemic.
Yes, the pandemic. It's harder to blame him for that one, but the Supreme Court.
I don't blame him, but we're talking about defining moments.
Yeah, defining moments. And defining moment for Matt Walsh, maybe because like he keeps. Well, we'll find out. He has some very interesting defenses towards the end here. It's all a psyop. You see, it's all a psyop, except certain things are not.
He just went straight into conspiracy theory mode.
Oh yeah, this is the very beginning of the episode. This is like minute one. This is like second one. This is that's why I included all that. It's like no, this is his opening gambit. This is how he begins this whole thing. It's incredible.
we were told relentlessly for years on end by both political parties, along with every mainstream media outlet in the country. It was a mask-off moment in which neo-Nazis, emboldened by Donald Trump, supposedly, violently rioted in the streets, killing an innocent woman in the process. And
what's wrong with that?
Yeah, that's what happened. That's objectively what happened.
Yes, that's all true. Yes.
We were told Donald Trump endorsed these neo-Nazis live on national television, calling them very fine people.
Also true, although
literally
Donald
what he
Trump
said.
because Donald Trump is Donald Trump, and he said he had 3 different statements to make. And so if you pick only the ones in which he didn't call them very fine people, I guess he didn't call them very fine people, but he did call them very fine people on both sides. Yes, both the fascists and the anti-fascists were very fine people at Unite the Right, the place where there were no moderates. It was just the fascists. Well, there were moderates on the left, but like Matt Walsh didn't attend this thing. Tucker Carlson didn't attend this thing. They wanted to get those kind of alt-right guys in there at the time. I remember I was watching the group chats at the time. I was listening to the podcast at the time. They desperately wanted. That's the whole point of why they called it Unite the Right, was to get all these people involved. And every one of these alt-right weirdos like Gavin McInnes just knew this is gonna stink to high heaven. You're gonna get shit all over yourself. It's gonna be baby diarrhea right in your face for the rest of time. Stay the fuck away from this thing. And they all did. They scattered like the cockroaches they are. There were no normie conservatives at Unite the Right. It's just not a thing. Like I have like live streams of people recording at the time, and all they're doing is like little Hitler memes. It's full on the thing. Anyway, we covered it in episode 3 of this podcast. We covered Unite the Right. If you
it was episode 3 and 4, I believe.
3 and 4. Right? Yeah, that makes okay.
Still very proud of those episodes.
Oh yeah. That's those are some of the. We could have quit right then. Honestly, obviously there was more to say, but we could have quit right then and just be like, that's our purpose in the world.
Joe Biden said when he launched his campaign for president, and about 10 million times after that, the rally was definitive proof that white supremacy was alive and well in the United States. Watch.
Was it not? It was a massive far-right rally where they killed a lady. What the fuck? What was it if it wasn't definitive proof that it was alive and well in the United States?
Yes, exactly. Oh, but you see, the SPLC had a guy on the other side, and so therefore it was all just the wily little SPLC just made all this happen. Those are not real Nazis. All those people are fake. They're just fakey fakes. Yeah, no, that's the whole point. Yeah. By the way, I included the little Law and Order dog there to not play the 3 minutes of video that Matt Walsh played of Joe Biden talking about Unite the Right. By the way, there's another one coming up here in about 45 seconds.
Well, all of corporate America lined up to push this message. Shortly after the Unite the Right rally, Apple announced a $2 million donation to so-called anti-hate groups, including
fuck off, you boring prick.
Hey,
corporations covet their PR. Shocker. Matt Walsh is stunned to hear this.
And Apple, a $1 trillion company, spent $2 million. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Hold your horses there, Matt.
They brushed some crumbs off the table at the issue.
Yes, we are concerned with white supremacy in America to the tune of $2 million. Also, we spent another $40 million building suicide nets around a single factory in China where they actually make the horrific products that we produce. Yes, that's how that goes.
Yeah.
SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center. The CEO, Tim Cook, declared that hate is a cancer, and left unchecked, it destroys everything in its path. J.P. Morgan Chase and the Clooney Foundation did the same thing. In fact, J.P. Morgan's CEO, Jamie Dimon,
go ahead.
Again.
He's just stating things that are true.
I'm not going to be the one to ride to the defense of Tim Cook, right? But that's an objectively true statement.
Exactly.
I don't trust Tim Cook's motives for saying it, but it's true.
Yes, no, exactly. And he's going to go on and talk about different Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan. It's like the company will match employee donations. It's all internal PR that matters. So Apple does this to make the customer base think that Apple is a good company, and also the people who work for Apple think that Apple is a good place to work. It's just how this stuff works. Apple doesn't give a shit. Tim Cook doesn't give a shit.
How to make Matt Walsh's brain explode? Get him to watch H. Bomber Guy's woke brands video from 8 years ago.
Yeah.
That's all this takes.
Exactly. We'll put that in the show notes, maybe. So, but also what he's doing here is he's saying that all of this lefty largesse and all this anti-fascist action, all this calling things hate. This is all corporate backed. It's all like corporate, like ultimately it's a function of capitalism is kind of what other people in this genre will kind of use. It's like, no, this is all fake. It's all just like programmed by the elites at the top. And like really, like, hating the Jews is just it's the more natural, like it's the real working class solution to our problems, is hating Jews and hating trans people and hating Muslims. It's like, that's the real thing, because the people telling you not to, well, those are the rich guys at the top of the tower. It's like, yeah, well, maybe they're just saying that because it's true, and really they don't really. It's all the woke brands thing, as you said. I mean, it's just like, but this is part of the whole rhetoric that they're using. This is part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Said that the company would match employee donations to the SPLC. He also disbanded an advisory panel to the president for reasons that were never clear. But the SPLC got exactly what it wanted. They isolated the president, they demonized conservatives, and they received millions of donations. And they never stopped. They kept hammering the Unite the Right narrative, and they kept fundraising off of it successfully. In fact, 5 days before Charlottesville, Cam Higbee reports that SPLC received $375,000 from the state of Alabama. So this is an extremely well-funded group with money coming from everybody, including the taxpayers, apparently. And this continued for years. The left was obsessed with Charlottesville, as you probably remember. It's the hoax that simply never died. You can make the case that it lasted longer than Russiagate.
Hey, like,
how was it a hoax?
Again, the whole argument that he's going to be making is that the SPLC is like they're putting up fake Nazis, that these are not real groups, that the KKK would be out there, there'd be a bunch of guys like in Sister Fuck Arkansas, like doing their whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then like the SPLC props them up and makes them into big boogeyman so that they can then fundraise off of them and then pretend to fight them when really they're paying them in the background. So what Matt Walsh is doing here, and this is going to be very different from what we're talking about, like the spectrum of how these far right people kind of talk about this stuff. Matt Walsh, it's in Matt Walsh's interest. He gets very well paid by Ben Shapiro. The Daily Wire, as we were recording, a few days ago, it slammed like 50% of its staff because it turns out you can't run a multimedia empire that's going to compete with Amazon on bent key money. But that's just how it goes.
Yeah. And I as other people have said, I strongly suspect that somebody who was funding them has pulled funding because their views have been cratering for ages now, and it looks like a lot of that was artificially inflated, and it looks like somebody somewhere, we've often talked about where the money comes from, it looks like somebody somewhere has pulled the rug out from under them, and this is what happens when they're not artificially inflated.
Very likely. But yeah, no, that's kind of where he's going to go, and that's kind of the mainstream kind of perspective among these like Daily Wire types. Is like, this just proves that we, the real conservatives, were like just honest, Trump-loving people who just wanted our country back. Who wanted we wanted deportations, we wanted just to et cetera, et cetera. And it's all these. The SPLC was just, they were paying people to conflate us with them, when in fact, as we will see. Matt Walsh has certain opinions about James Alex Fields, the murderer in Charlottesville, that well, you may recognize them, Jack, when we get
right. Well, I will also point out that aside from multiple things that Matt Walsh has said, Michael Knowles has said, including calling for transgenderism to be eliminated, which is very clearly, to anybody that's actually looking at this in good faith, a coded call for genocide of trans people. Multiple things Ben Shapiro has said, that all these things that are actually in real terms far-right opinions. Numerous times they've platformed far-right people, been on the same panels as far-right people, dignified far-right people, etc., until fairly recently, Ben Shapiro employed Candace Owens, who literally praised Adolf Hitler while she worked for him.
Yes.
So don't give me that, well, we're just respectable conservatives and you're bad-mouthing us by comparing us to these Nazis. Bullshit. You do that by yourselves, guys.
Although Candace Owens was on some way. I mean, Candace Owens was not praising Adolf Hitler the way Mike Enoch would praise Adolf Hitler, to be clear. She was off on some bizarre, weird tangent at that point, But
she never
but
makes
still
sense. But she in public said, his nationalism was good domestically. That's what she said.
Yeah, his domestic nationalism was good. Oh, what the parts in which he exported all the Jewish people to death camps in Poland? Was that the good part? But no, she never has to answer that question. So, it's just a thing. But
4 years after Biden's campaign video in 2024, Kamala Harris again invoked Charlottesville on the debate stage. Watch.
And just parenthetically, that's another clip where I just didn't include it.
Now, every single aspect of this narrative, as told by every media outlet and by every prominent politician in Washington, was a lie. We've known that for some time. Trump did not endorse white supremacy. In fact, he explicitly did the opposite. No. And contrary to what CNN would have,
you're a liar.
You're a fucking liar.
As I just described, he actually did both. And depending on how you define white supremacy, the way I define white supremacy, he has been continually doing it for the 10 years he's been a politician in the public eye. I think there's no question that he is explicitly endorsing white supremacy, in the sense of privileging the white people who live in in this country most specifically, but largely in the world, privileging white people. White South Africans are the only refugees who are allowed into the United States on a refugee program right now. Like, that's it.
Yeah, that's not an accident. Yeah, there's the broader definition of white supremacy. I totally agree with you. The entire MAGA project is white supremacist to its core, top to bottom, right the way down. White supremacy, right the way down. There's also the narrow definition, and he platforms and repeats that too. And I was going to go to exactly what you just mentioned, the white South African thing. We did a news brief about this where he had the president of South Africa, or the prime minister, I beg your pardon, I don't remember, Cyril Ramaphosa, in the Oval Office, and he was repeating neo-Nazi conspiracy theories about white genocide in South Africa using material that he got from fascist Facebook groups.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you believe you don't have to be a neo-Nazi to oppose the removal of Robert E. Lee's statue.
I'm gonna give you this on a technicality. There are certain historical societies who actually do want to remember these things as the evil symbols that they are and put them into proper context. Okay, I'm gonna give you that one on a very, very mild technicality, but not the way you mean it. Not the way you mean it. You pretty much do have to really love the Confederacy in order to want to keep Robert E. Lee statues up. Yeah. I just thought it was funny. It's maybe we could give Matt Walsh a half point on that one, because
half a point. Yeah, that's
half a point out of 100. That's what we give Matt Walsh for that one.
You simply have to be an American, someone who's interested in preserving our shared history and venerating our national heroes.
Robert E. Lee is not a national hero of mine, and I grew up in the fucking South. No, thank you. No,
Robert E. Lee tried to destroy the United States of America. Even if you don't talk about the slavery, he tried to destroy the United States. I mean, the trouble is, this is so fucking obvious. Matt Walsh knows all these counter arguments. He knows what he's saying doesn't make sense. Everybody listening to him knows none of this makes sense. It doesn't matter.
It's all just propaganda. No, I get it. Yeah. No. Actually, there was a high school near where I grew up called Robert E. Lee High. So, oh my God. I forgot that until just now.
Of which Robert E. Lee is one of them, rather than defaming them. And that describes most of the people who attended that rally. And on top of that, you weren't told the full story about the woman who died during this rally. You were left.
Sorry, hang on a minute. Okay. Did he just say that most of the people that attended that rally were being defamed?
Yes, they were being defamed by the actual neo-Nazis. See, he's doing the same thing that every one of these guys has always done about Unite the Right since August 13th of 2017. Is there were the reasonable people who just believed the things that I believe, and then there were the scary Nazis off to the side, the people doing all the things, and those people, it turns out all those people were just funded by the SPLC, and that makes the SPLC the bad guys in this situation, which we always knew because they opposed us, the good people, the real Americans who just want national symbols, national heroes like Robert E. Lee brought back into glory. And don't forget the things he actually did. No, just he makes us feel good as Americans because he was cool. That's all, And maybe we want to enforce some white supremacy along the way, but we'll do it quietly. We'll just redraw all the district maps for the House and just to make sure black people don't get representation in the Congress anymore. That's we'll do that kind of thing. That's not white supremacy. That's just plain fair.
This is it. This is where it links up, because right now, even as we speak, the Confederacy is rising again.
Absolutely.
In the form of essentially an attempt to gerrymander black electoral rights out of existence throughout the former Confederate states.
They're actively in a campaign of destroying the Voting Rights Act, like de facto destroy the Voting Rights Act, and they're winning. Like it's just going to happen. Like, I mean, it's just the Confederacy is rising again. It's just not doing so with the Grays and the Blues. It's a different form of the same thing.
Yeah. If you're worried about a statue of Robert E. Lee coming down, I'm going to call you a Nazi. And if that upsets Matt Walsh, that's a risk I'm willing to take.
Led to believe that Heather Heyer was murdered.
No, first of all.
Oh, here we go.
First of all, the fact that Matt Walsh knows the name Heather Heyer in 2026 is really telling. Just the fact that he knows that name. That's really, really telling. Or that someone on Matt Walsh's staff knows that name, because who knows who actually, I mean, presumably he has staffers writing this stuff. And we know that like all these guys' writers' rooms are just filled to the brim with these like wannabe Nazis. It's just, who are keep their power levels slightly hidden. And, but they drop in these things. Somebody said, we need to talk about Heather Heyer, and what he's going to do, I'm going to tell you this before he does it. He's going to walk through the exact same list of excuses that like Mike Pinovich was using in August of 2017 about this thing. This is the exact same word. It's almost word for word. It is astonishing.
I was going to say, I mentioned episodes 3 and 4 of this show.
Yes.
I as he started speaking, I was thinking, this is just going to be like listening to that old episode, isn't it? He's just going to do that again.
Yep. So let's listen. Charlie Kirk, not a racist. And then you listen to the last 30 seconds of what he ever posted on his radio show, and it's like he's doing the 13 to 50 meme. Matt Walsh, not a racist, finds out the SPLC was doing the things they said they were going to do. What does he do? He starts defending James Alex Fields. That's what he's about to do. That's literally what he's about to do. He doesn't use his name, but that would be really telling if he used his name. That would be really interesting.
In cold blood by a white supremacist who drove into a crowd on purpose. But that's not what the authorities believed at first, before the mob demanded vengeance.
At first.
What's that got to do with anything?
And then he says, before the mob demanded vengeance. It's like, oh, the leftist mob demanded,
Imagine wanting, consequences for somebody driving a car into you.
Well, and like 26 people, I think, were injured in that.
Yeah,
it wasn't just
is the name that we know. Other people were seriously injured, maimed for life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Police officers actually thought the incident was not malicious at all, based on the fact that the driver was visibly horrified that somebody had died. The fact.
Apparently he wet his pants. That actually seems to be true. He wet his pants. Maybe because running over 30 people in your car and then fleeing in terror because they rightfully want a piece of your ass might be a little bit frightening to a 21-year-old twerp who showed up in Charlottesville, Virginia to stand next to Mike Pinovich and hold a sign. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and also, he's a fundamentally cowardly little guy who got himself into a hate crazed wax of fury and excitement and did something, and then probably immediately realized, oh, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. That's not an excuse, and it's certainly not a legal argument for reducing culpability.
I'm going to go ahead, since we talked about this, and I'm going to link to an episode of Weird Little Guys where Molly Conger goes over this in excruciating detail, just for anybody who forgot those details. So I'm going to link to that in the show notes as well.
The fact that his car had been surrounded and struck by an object, and the fact that the man had just Googled directions.
Surrounded and struck by an object is also, like, I believe I said this in that podcast episode. That's literally what the Nazis who were there on that day decided happened. They were going through the video frame by frame. This is no perfect 2017, August and September 2017, just after Unite the Right, talking points about this attack. There's absolutely no difference between them. in terms of just the pure defense. It is 100%. This is exactly what they were saying. You could take the text and like mix it up, and then like people could not guess which one is which if you put it in front of them.
To the point where I wonder if whoever wrote this actually consulted old episodes of The Daily Show in order to get the material. Possible.
Wouldn't it be funny if they were listening to episodes of I Don't Speak German instead? Like, they're doing their own research into, well, the Nazis, they're just gonna like spew on for 4 hours, but like this guy, he knows what he's talking about. That would be, I would find that horrifying and amusing. But yeah, no. So
to his home, not the place where the attack happened. In other words, he was not a domestic terrorist. It looks a lot like he got lost and panicked after he was surrounded on his way home.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Word for word. James Alex Fields wasn't a domestic terrorist. I'm assuming Alex Pretty and Rene Good were.
Oh, yeah. We never did that episode, but I could pull up the clips right now about Walsh talking about those particular people. Yeah. No,
yeah. Yeah, as you say, word for word.
Yeah. We could almost end here, couldn't we? Like, it's almost like, we just proved Matt Walsh is basically a Nazi. Where we always start in the kiddie pool on these episodes. How much darker can it get, Daniel? You ask. You ask.
I will just, before we move on, I will just point out, and again, with the caveat that it is completely pointless arguing with these people, debating them, picking apart what they say, because they know they're lying. They know they're talking crap. Their audience knows that too. None of them care. That's not what this is about. It's just about having stuff to say that proves their mutual membership of the same identity politics in-group. But he's literally disproved his entire meta claim about what's been going on here. The whole routine about the SPLC, ostensibly it's, they were blackening conservatism by sort of conflating all conservatives with a tiny minority of right-wingers. Why are you upset about them talking about these minority groups if you and those minority groups have nothing in common? If there's no connection between them and you just say, the SPLC covers nutcases like the KKK and people like that. That's not us, so I think that's good. Why can't you just do that? It's because, of course, you do have a fundamental similarity with those groups, which you just proved for us by coming out with the exact neo-Nazi line on the neo-Nazi rally.
Exactly. And on the neo-Nazi terrorist, on that guy, you literally use that same language about that particular guy. You are spewing neo-Nazi talking points right now. That Walsh, when you recorded that, it's up on the internet.
Oh, he's doing it now as well.
I'm sure he's doing it right now as well. Yeah, no, I mean,
his mouth is moving. He's spewing neo-Nazi talking points.
I listen to Matt Walsh just about every day now. So, oh my God. Okay. Yeah. Also, this is kind of remind me, just as an aside, it's like Sam Harris, like, I don't want to talk about race and IQ. You just have to like get the slime off of you whenever you defend Charles Murray, a man who is obsessed with talking about race and IQ. It's like, can't we just look at the data? Can't we just look at the simple claims about how this poor boy who's been railroaded for life into prison without parole is just going to, he was just a suffering young man who just cared about the poor car accident he got into. It's the exact same logic. It's the exact same logic. Yeah. No.
Yeah. And it's the exact same rhetorical flex as Holocaust denial. It's the, you deny that it happened, not because you think it was bad, but because you think it was good. Everybody involved in that conversation knows that when you say it didn't happen, what you mean is that it did, and I'm happy about that. It's just a way of saying things in code. That's all it is.
Yeah. Or they didn't go far enough, or there are lots of different, things with that. Anyway, we're not quite getting the Holocaust out today. God, we probably could have. I probably could have found something about that. Yeah. Oh no, I definitely could have.
Well, I mean, what we just listened to is the same thing in miniature.
It's the same logic. It's the same logic. Yeah, I agree. I was just thinking, like, could I actually have found an episode where they talked about Holocaust style and the way the SPLC went after innocent people? Yes, I could. Yes, I could. I could do that. Oh God. Sometimes I don't even want the show to be as dark as it could be. I didn't even think about that. Anyway, okay. Jack Posobiec. A man who was palling around with neo-Nazis all through 2015 and 2016, who was doing explicitly 1488 talking points, right up to the moment that like he figured his political career required him not to be engaged so much with these people. Right around the time Unite the Right, not when it happened, but when it was in the planning. He got there early. Jack Posobiec is every bit 100% as bad as any of these people that we've talked about on this podcast in terms of what he actually believes. He's just smart enough not to say it out loud. Now we get to talk about how he wants to use this rhetoric. And the thing he's going to do, he's going to use the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And so
he's still trying to ride Charlie's corpse.
Yeah. He's there. The whole network is all they do is talk about Charlie Kirk.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition of Human Events.
And again, I'm beginning the episode where he begins the episode. This is how he begins every episode. Welcome aboard, because he's an ex-Navy man, you see. Welcome aboard to Human Events Daily. And then wait for it.
Daily, we're here live on Real America's Voice. Today is April 23rd, 2026. Anno Domini.
Because he's Catholic, you see. He has to do the Anno Domini thing. Oh my God. You think Matt Walsh is tiresome? This guy is so much more tiresome than Matt Walsh. In my opinion.
Folks, we need to focus in on the Southern Poverty Law Center, the SPLC. Their fraud, their crimes.
This is the Shatner delivery. Their fraud, their crimes. Actually, Shatner did it really well if you've ever seen The Intruder. No. Yeah. That's a brilliant movie from 1962, made during the civil rights era, in which William Shatner plays a guy who's like come in and is trying to create racial strife in the South. It's a weird little bizarre little film, but William Shatner actually has a brilliant speech, and he does exactly this. Actually, now that I think Jack Posobiec probably like designed his entire affect on watching William Shatner's speech in that. Oh my God, that's entirely possible. I'll put a link in the show notes. We got lots of links in the show notes this time.
But also their behavior, the things that they have done, the targets that they have put on the backs of good people like Ben Carson, people for the Alliance Defending Freedom, people.
Here's what you run into with these kind of things is that these people will always say, like, well, they talked about Charlie Kirk, they talked about the Alliance, they talked about Ben Carson, et cetera. And it's like, well, what did they say exactly? What did they say? So, well, they created a hate map. Well, the hate map has like designations. It's not just like red. It's like it's green and blue and different colors, and then each one links to a particular piece, kind of talking about that organization and their connections and who they're and what they actually believe, because they actually had really qualified, well-heeled researchers, some of which I believe have been on this podcast from time to time as guest hosts, people actively doing good work, and who were hindered in that work by the SPLC by the SPLC not being willing to call a spade when it's time to call a spade. But yeah, no, the SPLC. I mean, the individual researchers are often like it's incredibly careful in terms of what they actually wrote, and when they did make mistakes, they got dinged.
Like Moms for Liberty, PragerU, and yes, Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk. So go back to last year. Let's go back to the tail of the tape. May of 2025. That's when they listed Charlie Kirk. That's when they listed him as an extremist. That's when they added him to their hate map. That's when they put him up and put a target on Charlie's back. The SPLC.
Exactly. This is how Posobiec, who's like basically the anti-Antifa, activist, writ large right now, who literally has done like roundtables with Donald Trump in attendance about this topic. He was the one who claimed like we found Antifa's girlfriend, the founder of Antifa's girlfriend.
The founder of
who? I'd like to meet this person.
This 120-year-old woman.
I just want to know who this person is. I want to know who do you think is the founder of Antifa? Who do you think their girlfriend is? I don't know. This is bizarre. That's the thing that was said out loud, and like nothing ever came of it. It was just said one time, and like we found his girlfriend. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Oh my god. Oh yeah. But yeah, so by the SPLC, by making what is a very well-reasoned article about Charlie Kirk and his influence and what he has to say with his voice on his radio program, which I was listening to at the time, and I can tell you many of the awful things that he said with his own voice, because they start calling attention to that and like, maybe this guy is very powerful in American politics right now, they put a target on his back, and this other person comes out and kills him. And therefore, the SPLC is responsible for this. Now, we do not know. Charlie Kirk's killer, alleged killer, has not even given a plea yet. The Utah system is kind of unique. The Posobiec and his boys over at Thought Crime and the Charlie Kirk Show, they track this thing obsessively. All I have to do is listen to their podcast, and I kind of know what's going on in the case, because they talk about it. Not every show, but a lot of shows, We still don't have a motive. We still don't have any ideological leanings. Posobiec is going to say, one of the shell casings has the Bella Ciao thing on it. One of the other ones said, if you read this, you're gay. So I don't let's, maybe this is not as clear cut. And this is what I said at the time, right? Now, it may very well be. I mean, if you ask me to lay odds on, I think 60, 70%, this guy was probably left of center. He was dating a trans girl. Charlie Kirk said nasty things and he couldn't take it anymore. I think that's probably likely, but we don't know. We didn't know then. We don't know now. Jack Posobiec doesn't know now. There's no reason anybody knows anything at this point. It has literally not been made public.
Yeah, sure. That's not him reading the SPLC's website and deciding to take out Charlie Kirk as a result of them making objectively true reports about things Charlie Kirk does and says.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, no. They put a target on Charlie's back. Also, you know that Posobiec always uses Charlie. He never says Charlie Kirk. He says Charlie. Yeah. He always says Charlie.
He's such a fucking worm, that guy. He's so fucking slimy. Charlie, my implied best friend, Charlie, whose corpse I will hump to success in front of you all.
Exactly. We're going to do an episode about this one of these days.
He put a target on Charlie Kirk's map.
He did what?
And then this guy.
I love that misspeak. you can re-record audio right there. You can record. He even noticed it at the time. It's like they put a target on Charlie Kirk's map. Wait. Can we retake that? He does do it live, so I guess he can't re-record, but still,
Pause while he thinks of it. Fuck it. Just carry on. Power through it. They won't notice.
Who said that he had to eradicate Charlie's hate. Some hate can't be negotiated with.
The SPLC
Which is also not what the SPLC said. No, I mean, that does seem to want to. I think there are notes that are work to that effect, from Tyler Robinson.
But these, I mean, again, it's pointless debating this stuff because they know it's bullshit. Their audience know it's bullshit. Everybody knows it's bullshit. They all know it doesn't mean what it, the actual words are meaningless. It's just signaling your membership of the in-group, etc., etc. But at the same time, none of this joins up. This is not an argument. The premises do not connect. He's just saying things.
Well, but things about the outside world, and presumably Posobiec also knows things about the outside world and knows that he's spewing a bunch of lies and propaganda. But I think you probably have a little bit too much faith in his audience. I think
I have no faith in his audience, except that's the point. They do not care that it doesn't make sense. They are just there to hear the right syllables.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. And so this works as propaganda, not logic. So.
Yeah.
Climbed up to the top of a building and shot and killed Charlie.
Nothing to do with the SPLC.
After the SPLC did that. That was May of 20.
After the SPLC did what?
They put a target on Charlie's map. Do you understand? Jack Posobiec just said that. They put a target on Charlie's map. I mean, how could it be any clearer? I really wouldn't make fun of a slip of the tongue like that. I mean, I do plenty of it myself, but still, how could it be any more clear? They put a target on Charlie's map. Absolutely. Okay. And again, there might be a logic to this. If we bending over backwards, steel manning this, to the nth degree. If Tyler Robinson had viewed the webpage the day before or the week before, or he bought the gun the day after or something like that. You could see like, oh, they're using, but no, this seems to be, if anything, it's a crime of passion. If anything, it's Charlie Kirk is actively insulting people like my girlfriend, and I want to do something about it. Yeah.
And Charlie Kirk happened to be near him as well.
Yes. Yes.
If it was Tyler, what's his name, then it probably psychologically worked just like the Kennedy assassination. That only happened because that motorcade just happened to be going past that building where that guy worked.
2025 to September of 2025. Memorial Day to Labor Day. Memorial Day.
You're just
to Labor
saying
Day.
things.
He does have to fill out like 57 minutes worth of audio, like twice a day, I think. So I mean, you can't just repeat things. It's just the way it goes.
And it's hard to do that when you're barely more sentient than a glass of water.
Yes.
And we look at this situation, we have to see it very clearly for what it is. And we have to remember that Tyler Robinson also had the Antifa national and international anthem. The Antifa anthem on his bullets. Bella Ciao. And what did the SP?
And again, one of the bullets also said, if you read this, you are gay. So you tell me.
SPLC say when they talked about Antifa, they said that President Trump listing Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization is dangerous. Dangerous? We're going after extremists. Isn't that what you're supposed to do, SPLC? Oh, no, it's not.
Making vegan burritos and taking down fascist stickers is a domestic terror organization now. Yes, that's how that works.
Again, the actual data out here in the real world is that far-right terrorism is vastly more common than violence committed by left-wing groups or, Antifa, which isn't even a fucking organization.
No, it's not an organization. It's not. Jack, you were going to be very thankful I spared you this week. Believe it or not, I have spared you. I had a clip. I almost included it. I was like the very last thing I cut of Ungar Sargon going through exactly that kind of argument of like, no, it's actually the right wingers who are the peaceful ones, the left wingers, and all the things that the violent people did in the 2020, and they burned things, and exactly, and in that noxious voice. Imagine being the dumber person whose name is Sargon in the far right space of the United States.
Yeah, I don't know.
The more intellectually incurious one. Yes.
Oh, I see. The SPLC was actually funding extremists on the right and perhaps, just perhaps, helping extremists on the left. Doxing, canceling, debanking, censoring. That's what they were doing to conservatives.
And so here, it's the same logic.
Conservatives.
What they were doing to conservatives like me and my friends was debanking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what they were funding the KKK and also Antifa. Again, SPLC, as far as I know, SPLC never gave any on the ground anti-fascist any cash at all.
We've skipped gracefully from misrepresenting the facts to just imagining stuff.
Yes.
That's what he's doing now. He's just imagining stuff. Maybe they funded Antifa. They might have done. Seems plausible to me and you. Let's face it. So let's just all imagine that probably happened because it confirms our prejudices, doesn't it? Meanwhile, we won't worry that none of this joins up. Conservatives... Yeah. Banking is the same thing as SPLC writing letters and thereby inciting murder. It's random gibberish.
Yeah. And, some people might say, well, you just took his intro and you didn't actually dig into the details of his argument. I promise you the details of what I did the intro just because it was quick and easy and it was 2 minutes long and it was quick to go through it. This is the same argument. He never puts connective tissue in any of this. It's just never a thing.
That's right. After this bit that we've just played, it all suddenly starts making ruthlessly logical sense.
Indeed. Exactly. All right. That's all the Jack Posobiec I have for you today.
Thank you.
What's the motto of the show? It always gets worse. I get to introduce to you a new character, Jack. Aren't you excited? somebody who's been on my radar for a long time. You probably
He's
heard
not
of it. I think you've seen him before.
Quite a new character. He has actually popped up in cameo roles on this show.
Oh,
before.
yeah. We did a little bit of him talking about Kyle Rittenhouse, I think, or Elijah Schaffer, one of those. He was in one of those episodes. Yeah.
That's right. And he was talking about a conservative philosopher,
yes.
which I immediately identified as Carl Schmitt, a literal Nazi.
Yes. Well, will it surprise you to learn that John Doyle now has a cushy little sinecure on the Blaze network, where Elijah Schaffer used to be, by the way, until he started feeling up the female, the female talent, and
also the male talent, reportedly.
Well, the ones I think he got shit canned for were the female talent, but it's entirely possible. Particularly, I won't, she's a far right shithead, but I'm not going to name her. She's a victim in that situation. So I know who it is, but anyway, we're now going to be talking about John Doyle. He used to have a show called Heck Off Commie. He's one of the even scrawnier Nick Fuentes clones that kind of came around 2018, 2019. And now he's
beardier and speckier as well, isn't he?
It depends on what state you find him in. He is speckier. He does have more of a beard most of the time. In his intro, ironically, he's wearing like a nice business shirt and a tie, and he's got his glasses and he's clean shaven. And then in every episode, he's actually much more like ragged and wearing like a t-shirt and and beardy. So, it's just one of those, like, well, we're advertising one thing and getting another. This is not the reason to dislike John Doyle, by the way, but I do find it amusing. Like, Matt Walsh is like defined by his beard, like get that Matt Walsh, like he wears that beard like a suit of armor. That's how you know it's Matt Walsh. I remember Jessie Gender doing a whole thing during the What is a Woman thing, and she was just going around with a beard like Matt Walsh's and interviewing people, which was very funny. It was very funny. Anyway, John Doyle. So at this point, I have to warn you, first of all, that you're going to hear little bubble pops in this clip. That's because, despite the fact that I downloaded the audio version of the show, in the video version, whenever he pops up a graphic that indicates what he's talking about, the thing makes a little pop, pop sound. And you'll hear those many times during the course of this audio. And I wouldn't know how to remove it. I mean, I probably could remove it if I put hours into it. And I recommend that you not do it, just so that you get a sense of just how annoying this is, an artifact in an audio podcast that's intended to be listened to in audio format. Did you ever get pop-up video in your country? Was that ever a thing that you got?
No.
Okay. It was an old show in the 90s and early 2000s on VH1. It was like a music video thing, and they would do like little snarky music video, like tidbits in the middle of the, so like there's a snake on the screen, and they do, the longest snake in the world is the snake, that sort of thing. It was, and sometimes it would be like trivia about anyway, that's the image I got, like listening to for the first time. Is he doing pop-up video, but for like Nazi apologia? No, he's just doing that. Because they used a very similar sound. Anyway, I'll put a link to it. More links in the show notes. I did find Lisa Loeb's Stay. I found that one on YouTube when I was thinking about doing this segment, so I'll link that one. It's a fun little pop-up. It gives you a sense of what the forum was. It's very basic cable part of my teens and 20s. Anyway, so all right. Also, the other thing you need to know about John Doyle is he is obsessed with the R slur. I'm going to recommend you not edit these out, just so you get the sense of it. He's going to use the R slur 3 times in the first 45 seconds of this video, of this clip. And I did not clip this aggressively to find that. That's just what he's doing. And this is from episode 54 of The John Doyle Show, if you want to go find this little masterpiece for yourself.
Remember Econ 101, where you learn that you get more of what you subsidize? Yeah, that's correct. You also get less of what you penalize. They subsidize all forms of the retard right with financial benefits, social media engagement, impunity for other criminal activity.
And what he means, what you hear when you do see this term a lot in these kind of far right spaces, usually further right than John Doyle, although John Doyle, as we will learn, is actually very far right. What you learn is that they usually intend this to be basically the people who go out and do like overt Nazi posting, who are like wearing the Klan robes and wearing a swastika and doing all that sort of thing. Although, as you'll notice, not everybody who does these things gets that moniker attached to them, and we will find out which figures John Doyle thinks are not the R slur right very shortly. But that's what the term signifies in these conversations. If you run across it in the wild, that's usually what it means.
Yes, remember, they are indeed retarded after all, and that's true. It's not just one thing where it's like, somebody's a fed, somebody's an op or something. It can be in a lot of different forms. Most of the time they're unwitting. Sometimes they can be reached out to, or they can be in contact with somebody who claims to be like, a rogue patriot occupying some 3-letter agency, and this is what we want you to do.
And so what he's talking about here is like how you can be approached, if you're a member of one of these groups, how you can be approached by someone who wants information out of you. This is already much more correct than anything that we heard out of Matt Walsh or Jack Posobiec. This guy is much more on the level. He knows what he's talking about. Now, not on every topic, certainly. I mean, actually, I think he does know what he's talking about. He's a smart guy. He's just evil. He's not dumb. He's just evil. Yeah. Sometimes you get dumb and evil. John Doyle is neither. He's evil, but not dumb. So, just to be clear. But you notice, even that connective tissue, even just that one little segment, he's much more based in reality than anybody that we've talked about in this podcast in quite a while, just to be clear.
Yeah, he's engaged in a fundamentally different project to these other two. These other two are engaged. They're talking to a different audience. They're talking to the audience that aren't, the sort of the MAGA audience, who are very, very right wing, but they're not actually involved in one of these. They're not actually sort of deeply enveloped in the online far right subculture. Right.
And he's saying to those people who might be tempted to go and join one of these groups, to put on the bootlaces and the bracers and to go and beat heads. It's like, no, we're achieving our political goals. We're doing this the right way. We're going to do this by taking advantage of Donald Trump. That's the way we're going to do this. And that's why he calls him the art slur right. Is because you don't understand what a great thing we have here in Donald Trump. We know Donald Trump isn't as far as we need to be on our issues, but he's way further there than anybody we're ever going to get before then, or maybe not after this. But they see him as a vessel that they can use to fulfill their political aims, not as someone whose political aims they need to support 100%. John Doyle he's 100% on this. He is talking both to that more mainstream MAGA Blaze audience that you are referring to, and to the kind of younger crowd, the Nick Fuentes crowd, who need to be talked down from going and pursuing more direct action, shall we say, who need to be who are Nazis in their hearts, but who need to be told, no, put on your business shirt, put on your tie, get a degree, join one of these immediate organizations, or insert yourself in a campaign and actually push your agenda using the force of the state government. That's the way John Doyle wants things to go. That's the point that John Doyle is getting.
Right.
Yeah. And when you see some of his references here in the next couple of minutes, you will believe me when I said that. I realize I have not given you evidence of that yet, but you can tell just the way he's talking about this. He is much more he's playing a very, very different game than these other two knuckleheads were doing.
Or they can present them with evidence of hey, we know that you did this bad thing because you're retarded. Here's what we...
Again, 3 times in 40 seconds.
He's very fond of it, isn't he?
Yes, he is. And this is not an outlier. This is pretty continual. Yeah.
Want you to do now. It can be money, obviously in the case with this, we've known that people were getting paid by the SPLC forever. I mean, I'm glad that we have this coming out now, but David Duke, for example.
David Duke, clearly you're going to say one of those ridiculous R-slur Nazis who just didn't know how to be a more mainstream person, who joined the Klan at 17, who was an open Klan member in the 70s, who's been openly anti-Semitic for his entire life, who does a show even now talking about how awful the Jews are and how great Hitler was. This is your David Duke. This is your figure. Now he's going to say this is part of the R-slur right? He's going to say this is a guy who doesn't know how to get with the program and engage with politics as it's actually played, right? That's what he's going to say. No, that's not what he's going to say.
Who's written books all about how, the true history.
Listen to that little laugh there, that little laugh. Ha, 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 ha.
History of the Russian Revolution, the true history of Zionism. This guy's super based and red pilled, but he was also selling lists of his guys to the SPLC, and we'll
I don't know that that's actually known that David Duke was personally. It would be really interesting if John Doyle knows that and let it slip. It's possible that's well known. But David Duke has kind of been, it's known that he's been like kind of chatting up people at the SPLC for a while. So I would imagine this is like well known information that I just don't have like a particular piece of information in my head about. But the true history of the Russian Revolution. Jews.
I wonder what he thinks that means.
The true history of Zionism.
Yeah, it's something to do with the protocols of Zion, I expect.
Yes, exactly. No, I mean, David Duke has written all these, but like if you're like praising David Duke's books at that point, like the score. That's what you're saying.
Yeah,
you don't accidentally praise David Duke's books.
Talk about that among other examples of like based people working like in explicit collaboration with law enforcement, which I am going to expand to include organizations like this because it's all different organs of the same machine, which is the global left. Yeah, they're not
the global left. All the people who are not Nazis are the global left. That's essentially what he's arguing.
Law enforcement and the SPLC are all part of the global left.
Not at all threatened, I say, literally laughing out loud, by based ideas guy number 57, which is to say anybody who gets in front of a megaphone or a microphone and is like, here's what we really need to do. I'm based. If there wasn't always one on deck, come on, Doyle, get it together. They'd have.
Look at John Doyle correcting his grammar on the fly. Maybe he should give Jack Posobiec a little lesson.
Have to create one, as they often do, but I digress. This is absolutely true, and we'll get into this a little bit as we continue. If these people did not exist organically, they would have to be invented, which is why ultimately I think the distinction between is it a knob, is it not a knob, is ultimately not important, because the function is the same, which is it benefits the left, it hurts the right, literally every time. And that is why these incentives exist.
So here he's off in the weeds, and he's doing this thing. Like the incentives exist, like the SPLC, the whole point is to hurt the right. And so here he's doing a little bit of that, like Jack Posobiec thing, and a little bit of that, Matt Walsh thing of like these, the SPLC is funding these people in order to give them like stature in the community so that they can go out and do things and like oppose those of us on the real right, the non-Arcelor right. Here's where he's kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth. Like he knows what he believes and he knows what he wants people to believe. He knows who he is. And he knows that, presumably he knows that the SPLC is not funding these people. They're just paying them for information. Although the sheer numbers, the sheer number of dollars that were involved, that looks really stinky to me. I'm just, reiterate that. But so he is going back to that standard, like modus operandi. But you notice that he is doing it very disingenuously, like overtly disingenuously. He's talking out of both sides of his mouth.
Where normal people who can occupy the mainstream to present and forward these kinds of ideas are targeted with assassinations, targeted with lawfare, all this other stuff, whereas the people who are maybe a little bit more radioactive, who maybe do a big disservice to normal.
Radioactive there is a dog whistle to the glow-in-the-dark meme, and that's the people who are like active informants or active feds within far-right organizations. Glow-in-the-dark was like a 2017 meme. I think it goes back to like 2015. So like using radioactive and then emphasizing in that way, it's an explicit reference to like memes that he would have seen when he was like 15. Like that's literally, that's literally how deep John Doyle is in this thing. And he's just hoping that people like his audience catch it, and people like me do not.
Ideas by participating in these kinds of LARP activities. Those are the people who actually benefit from this in terms of social media engagement, literally cash payments, impunity for crimes, things like that. So the incentives are very clear because every time something serious happens on the American right, and I'm talking broadly within the last 60 years, you curiously get these guys to show up and roll out of the clown car, and they're like, oh, you inserted these ideas about immigration restriction into the national conversation. You provided us some kind of window that wasn't just Mitt Romney or John McCain. Okay, thanks. We'll take it from here. Let's light a cross on fire. Let's start.
So again, what he's saying there is, Donald Trump was invited into the conversation. He becomes a major political figure, and he's talking about like actual far-right fascist ideas. And we're going to go out there because we're paid by the SPLC. We're going to go start burning crosses, et cetera, et cetera. And so his is more about like political activity, about the kinds of activity that people engage in, rather than beliefs. Whereas Posobiec and Walsh have to be much more in the they're kind of speaking the same language, but they have to much more kind of be on the side of we are the real conservatives. We just want immigration restriction. Whereas John Doyle, he's overtly using these far right memes. He's doing it for a reason.
Yeah, he's kind of he's doing the same sort of thing that the other two are doing. It's a slightly more sophisticated version of it, and it's more aimed at internal movement politics.
Yes,
but it's fundamentally the same.
Yeah, and in terms of it being based in internal movement politics, I mean, what he's trying to do is he's trying to say to these guys who might be tempted to go out there and burn a cross, etc., is like, no, we've got it from here. You will be much more effective electorally. You'll be much more effective if you join your local Republican group and you push them to the right. If he's an open electoralist at this point, and it's funny, electoralism works on the right. Amazing how that works. Electoralism works on the right. Yeah. Turns out that like huge existing bastions of state power are meant to repress people. They're much more able to get their goals accomplished than anti-authoritarian measures.
Throwing Romans. What are you doing, dude? We were supposed to learn this lesson. I mean, probably like a billion times. We were supposed to at least learn this lesson after Charlottesville. This idea
we were supposed to learn this lesson after Charlottesville.
Yeah, that's true. But also we, in the sense of you and I, we've been listening to them have this conversation over and over and over again this entire podcast. It's the optics debate again.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it is. I've been listening to John Doyle have this conversation for many years at this point. We really should have put him on this podcast a lot more prominently, but he was always kind of a little gnat. He was always like, yeah, we'll get to him eventually. So we're getting to him eventually.
Well, the left are going to call us racist anyway, so we may as well dress up like Klansmen. The left are going to call us Nazis anyway, so we may as well dress up like SS members. And it's like, okay, let's calm down a little bit.
But I suppose, quoting Carl Schmitt approvingly is okay because it's
it's on David Duke approvingly.
Yeah.
So now this one, I was just listening through, more of John Doyle kind of talking. I was just like, we just haven't included enough John Doyle in this podcast. I realized that, like, just how much he pretends not to be an open Nazi and just how much of an open Nazi he is. Even more so, I think, than Nick Fuentes. I think he has better optics than Nick Fuentes in a lot of ways, because he's using slightly more coded language, and because he has like professional handlers who help him take care of this shit. But so this is 2 episodes later, and he's talking about he was kind of talking more about this SPLC litigation and about how like liberals understand the far right and about how they're being gaslit by the SPLC. And then he gives a very interesting some very interesting references, even more so than the ones we did in the last clip. So I decided to include this.
She was trying to develop an understanding of the other side.
And this is like his friend's mom. His friend's mom is like trying to like read books to understand, the evils of the right wing, because his friend's mom is like, a liberal or whatever. That's kind of like a normie lib.
Right. So this is sort of like the libtard delusion. She was convinced at this time.
Can we count that one as an R slur? I'm counting it as an R slur.
Yeah, that counts.
Time, 2020, everything's going on. She was like, well, I want to understand what the other side thinks about the world so that maybe I can reach them. It sounds like a pretty good intention, right? Understand kind of where people are coming from. Guess what she read? I'm going to pull it up. Okay.
And here he has a screenshot in the video version. I actually watched the video version just to see. He has a screenshot. He's holding up his phone, and it's a screenshot of a text message where his friend had sent him a photo of his mom's dining room, not dining room table, like the living room counter sort of thing, like the table in the living room. And she has a few books stacked up on it, and he's going to read the titles of 2 of them.
You're not going to believe this. So I've got this image. I'll try to show you. Basically, my buddy texts me and he says, hey, guess what my mom's reading to understand the other side? And I'm like, what? He sends me a picture of their coffee table. I don't know if that's going to focus or you'll be able to see. Essentially, what she's got there is a copy of How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi.
Okay, Mom. I would have said Stanford from the beginning. I think that's the better book. But hey, what? Okay, I'm giving you you're on the right track with this. You're on the right track with this. No,
Yeah.
Under that, there is a copy of The Turner Diaries by Andrew MacDonald.
I mean, that
Where did you get that?
Well, I looked it up. So
You
I don't
can't
know.
order that on Amazon.
You can't on Amazon. I did Google it. It is a picture. It is a hardback book. Like it is an actual physical book. I never owned a physical copy of this. All my Nazi literature I either have by PDF, which I obtained for free, or from a former Nazi who gave it to me for free or for shipping costs. So I do have like signed copies of Mein Kampf, not from Adolf Hitler, but from former Nazis.
Fine. Signed copies. To Daniel with love and hugs.
Yes, exactly. Yes, a Hitler with the a Hitler in like a little heart, with two X's on the bottom. Now somebody's gonna clip that. Somebody's gonna send that to me now. They don't know my address. It's fine. Okay.
If you are at all familiar with that particular piece of literature, then this woman is probably now on an FBI watch list. I don't even know where the she got a copy of the Turner Diaries. It is
now. I will say there were used copies were usually available for a few $100s or a couple $100s, pretty widely on like eBay and stuff. I mean, this was not like impossible to find; it was just expensive. This one looks to me like a new copy, and I did find out there are far right publishers who it is easily Googleable. I found it in like 2 clicks. It is findable online. You can't get it from Amazon because Amazon has banned it. But a banned book on the age of the internet, it's not really a banned book. It's just not. It's just kind of the way it goes. Obviously, I'm not giving those people any money, but I would assume that's where she got it. Just to be clear, I was curious about this, so I Googled it because I was actually doubtful that this was true at first.
I was going to say, yeah.
It's like that's an actual banned book. The only libtard to ever read an actual
5
banned book. And she does it because she wants to develop a psychology of the average Trump supporter. And instead of...
Actually, I don't know. It sounds like what she wants to understand is the far right. If she's reading How to Be an Anti-Racist and the Turner Diaries, I mean, those are not, terrible books, to understand this stuff. Yeah.
She could do worse. She could do worse.
I don't know. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would not say most people should read the Turner Diaries, but if you're reading it alongside How to Be an Anti-Racist, I mean, if you manage to find it, first of all, I don't know, like most people will read that book. They will put it down with 20 pages because it's just horribly written.
It stinks on eyes. Just
to
read. Yeah.
No, I mean, I have read it a couple of times. It's bad. It's just badly written, but it's badly written in the way that a lot of like pulpy sci-fi from the 60s and 70s is badly written. I mean, it's got the extra dollop of just the extreme racism, but if you can get through that, it's pulpy sci-fi from the 60s and 70s, and I've run a ton of that.
Reading, I don't know, one of the billion books written about the Trump political cause, watching any of the sort of like Trump aligned media, having a conversation with a Trump supporter, what does she do? She goes and reads what has been labeled as a white nationalist manifesto, dystopian, murder porn, that kind of book or whatever.
He's read the book. John Doyle has read the book. He knows what the book is. And now, what's the very next words out of his mouth?
Have not read it. I don't even know anything about it. I'm simply saying that is kind of the psychology of the median libtard, where
they always do. This is such like the Nazi thing to do, is like he describes perfectly the content of the book and he goes, oh, I don't know, I've never read it, I don't know anything about it. I don't know, the Turner Diaries, I had to look this up. My writer knew about this. I don't know. I mean, it's so transparent. It's so transparent. It's so what these guys always do. And the fact that like if Glenn Beck puts this guy in the air and doesn't understand exactly what he's doing, or like some of the producers, I mean, maybe Glenn Beck doesn't want, but he's a high profile guy on the Blaze. I mean, this is I mean, it's remarkable that this is overt in 2017 neo-Nazi propaganda. Like it's the light version, but it's every bit as ideologically as committed as some of the less sweary versions of this stuff were in 2017. And that was just mainstream news entertainment within like online cable media, within the Blaze, within the very warm confines of good money within the right-wing ecosystem. John Doyle is presumably very well compensated to produce this show, and he's actively promoting while not promoting the Turner Diaries. That's where we are. Yeah. And this is a guy who complains that the SPLC isn't going after real racists. I don't think they ever did it. I don't think they ever did an entry on you, but maybe that's a maybe that's the real criticism.
If they're not willing to sign on to this kind of stuff where it's like, yeah, straight up violence is okay against like Trump supporters or whatever, even if they're not on the streets doing it, in their heart of hearts, they still believe that that is the person being targeted.
So now he's saying that the people on like the normie libs on the left believe that any normal Trump supporter, who believes the Turner Diaries is a perfectly fine book that you should read, is just an actual banned book, but it's not really anything bad. That those normie Trump supporters are the people that any normie leftist wants murdered, that they are going to commit violence on the right wing, and that the real violence is coming from the left in the form of like the SPLC hit list, et cetera, et cetera. That's the logic. That's the through line here. All right, Jack, we've hit the nadir. You think that was a nadir? We've now hit rock bottom. James Edwards. What do you remember about James Edwards? We did an episode on him. I think it was episode 8 or 9.
It's coming back to me. Yeah.
This is one of the oldest far-right overtly racist.
This is Political Cesspool.
This is the Political Cesspool. Yes, you are correct. We have spoken of him at various times over the years. I think I've played some clips here and there. He's such a lolcow. We can always, anytime we need a news episode, I could just pull it up and we just whatever he's talking about. It's always absurd. He does a 3-hour podcast once a week. It's a radio show that then I listen to as a podcast. It has ads, it has everything. It is a fully, anyway, there's more. We could talk a lot more about James Edwards than we have before in the past. This is the very beginning of the April 25th show. This is the very first show he recorded 2 or 3 days after the release of this indictment, by the way. And this is the very beginning. You're going to hear a little bit of his opening theme music because he overlaps it with the intro. So I left out most of the theme music, but you're getting it from the very beginning. We did this 3 times because I thought it was interesting to kind of see how these guys approach the material more so than like get into the details of kind of where they get into the nitty gritty towards the end. So let me know how you like this. But
in a bombshell development, the Department of Justice has announced that a federal grand jury in Alabama has charged the Southern Poverty Law Center with multiple counts of wire and bank fraud related charges. Yours truly and Keith Alexander are going to set the stage on this story this hour before Jason Kessler, the Unite the Right organizer and author of Charlottesville and the Death of Free Speech, joins us later this hour to share his reaction.
The little guy who organized Unite the Right, personal friend of the show, one of the members of the TPC staff attended Unite the Right on the day. He's in some of the footage. He's in like the Netflix documentary. He's in the background of one of the shots in the Netflix documentary released around the time. It's astonishing stuff. But yeah, no, these guys were deeply involved. They admit they're deeply involved. These guys are openly white supremacists. These guys are openly, we are working in favor of white people. We are not invested in the Republican Party. He'll say, I voted for Trump 3 times. He is the only Republican I've ever voted for. I always vote third party, far right, Southern Confederate Party, et cetera, et cetera. But these guys, they're kind of in love with Trump. They've been in and out with him, especially over the war in Iran and over the fact that they see him as more and more controlled by the Jews every day. But and they say this is explicit white nationalist stuff. This is not. And what I want you to do is understand there's a spectrum here. We've been tracking the spectrum. This is what the actual Nazis have to say, right? So that's what we're going for here.
Yeah.
And they would say, we're not a Nazi. I'm a Southern nationalist. Fuck you, Robert E. Lee, worshiping asshole. Your best friends. You literally called David Duke one of your very best friends. This man personally has on many times on his show, if I asked him about it right now, he would say, David Duke is one of my best friends, and brings David Duke on regularly to talk about all the bullshit that David Duke believes. And James Edwards agrees with 99.5% of it at the very least. This is a Nazi. There's no question.
We'll then, in the second hour, host a panel discussion on the SPLC indictment featuring the following contributors. Glenn Allen, President and Chief Legal Officer of the Free Expression Foundation,
who has defended many of the Unite the Right defendants in their various legal lawsuits.
Sam Dixon,
who has funded a whole bunch of the legal organizations, and who is perhaps the single most odious man I have ever followed in terms of just listening to him speak. He is this vile little Southern patrician man who believes his shit does not stink. And he is the, I mean, just in terms of the sheer hate that I have for just listening to the sound of his voice. Sam Dixon is the worst. This is the reason we haven't done like more Sam Dixon. I just don't want to subject him to you. I don't want to.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we'll do it eventually, but I was not going to pull clips of Sam Dixon just for this.
Augustus Invictus found
marched in Charlottesville, served some time. We did a full episode on him.
Yep.
Again,
founder of the Invictus law firm, and Patrick Martin, author of A Walk in the Park, My Charlottesville Story. But that's not
another person marched in Charlottesville, marched at United Right.
At all. In the third hour, Dr. Michael Hill, former president of the League of the South, current
League of the South, which was disbanded after it lost its charter after the Science v. Kessler lawsuit. Notably sued out of his shorts. And then what did they do? They just found a new organization. Same thing Alex Jones is doing now. He's just forming a new show, a new corporation.
Yeah.
He's got a new thing. Yeah. It's called the Southern Nationalist League. But it's the same guy, marched very violent on the day.
President of the Southern Nationalist League will also weigh in on the DOJ's case against the SPLC before putting the finishing touches on our Confederate History Month series.
They do every April they do a Confederate History Month thing. So they are literally venerating the Confederacy during every episode they did during April. And this is just part of their coverage of that. It's, this is like breaking news we have to discuss. But you notice almost every person that he's going to interview tonight is someone who marched at Charlottesville, who were in this thing, who were the actual Nazis, who were the very fine people on both sides. It's these people. These are the people who are the very fine people. That's just the truth, right?
Yep.
All of the contributors tonight have big time skin in the game when it comes to the SPLC.
Because they've been targeted by the SPLC because they're fucking Nazis.
And or Charlottesville or both. Let's get to my hot takes. This is good news. It's absolute.
You think James Edwards thinks this is good news? James Edwards, who has personally been targeted by the SPLC on multiple occasions, by which people at the SPLC writing very accurately about the things that he says openly on his podcast and on his website and in various guest appearances and the things that he does and the people he affiliates with. That SPLC.
Good news. Everybody that I have met in life has either called or texted or emailed me this week. That's how big this story is.
That you've ever met in life?
Given that I would fully believe he was working on a far right political campaign when he was 20 years old. He was knocking doors for somebody. He was knocking for the Pat Buchanan campaign. That he met Pat Buchanan when he was 20 years old. Yeah. I would absolutely believe that that he learned this from his poppy's knee. I would absolutely believe that this is who he is. To my knowledge, I don't know what he does for money. I mean, this can't possibly pay his bills. I don't know. But he does 3 hours a week every week for the last 21 years.
The SPLT has attacked and libeled.
SPLT again.
SPLT.
that's a southern bacon, lettuce, and tomato. Yeah, that's where you put an egg on it and fry it on both sides. Yeah, okay. No.
And slandered and
actually, I think that's where you serve it on a southern biscuit. That actually sounds good right now. Anyway, sorry, I'm hungry.
Concentrate.
Lined the work of this program for over 20 years, nearly 100 different.
Maligned and slandered and maligned? No, and I think this is reported. Yeah, no.
Articles on its website, in the media, by calling our sponsors, by calling my church, by doing everything they could, calling our station manager, calling our station owner.
And informing accurately about the things you say and do and believe.
Yeah. So, yes, I am glad this has happened. I hope they are financially destroyed and that they go to prison. That's what I hope. I have been at war with them my entire adult life. Greg Johnson, in a very good piece at Counter.
No, you haven't been at war with them your entire life. You've been doing a sad podcast where you talk openly about being a sad little racist twerp, and they've been telling people about that. That's what's been happening, James.
Greg Johnson also, he mentions this is a man who runs countercurrents.com and the Countercurrents. I think there's a magazine, there's an organization. He is quietly, openly gay. which is kind of a thing within that movement. And there, anyway, we won't discuss that. I don't believe he marched at Unite the Right, but he was very much in support of it before and after. So, and has spoken. We've never done an episode on him just because I think he's boring, but I could easily do an episode on him.
Currents writes, when I heard about the indictment, I uncorked some cheap champagne and
just some cheap champagne. Interesting.
How pathetic.
kicked back to watch the internet go crazy. It's an unmitigated boon, he says. The SPLC, one of the banes of our existence, will be weakened by this. It may even be destroyed. Greg Johnson will be on with us next week to talk about this story. Of course, all of this would have been much more helpful 20 years ago when an attack by the SPLC was almost inevitably ruinous. They were feared and they were effective. Now they're more of a farce. They're kind of a joke. In order to keep the grift going, they've expanded their so-called hate group listing to include even the most nominally conservative groups.
Or the nominally conservative groups radicalized, because you helped them radicalize. That's the real truth of the matter.
Today, people actively solicit their denunciation because you have no street credibility without it. I want them to suffer and be destroyed, legally and financially, because they deserve it.
So whatever criticisms you and I have the SPLC, it is worth, this is what the actual Nazis who have been targeted by them for 20 years, I'm going to have to say. You know,
yeah,
you know the worth of an organization by its enemies, and James Edwards is a pretty awful enemy. Well, not because he's effective. Well, you know what I mean. All right, last clip. This is from the same episode, and this is him talking about the people we were talking about earlier, the more MAGA tier types, and the way that they responded to this. You see, we were the real heroes. We were out there marching in Charlottesville. I mean, not James Edwards did not march at Unite the Right, but one of the people of the organization did. And that night, they air on Saturday nights. That night, on August the 12th, 2017, they devoted 3 hours to people crowing about what a great night they had, about how badass it was, and how, they got to beat up on some commies. That's what they did. Man, if we ever do a Political Cesspool episode, we'll just go through that episode. I think that'd be a fun time. Don't you?
We've got people with firsthand knowledge tonight. But again, the amounts, I'm going to make this quick. I'm going to turn over the entire second segment to Keith. Then we're going to merge.
He's going to talk about the money that was paid to various people. So I'm just including this so that you kind of have a sense of how they talk about it and how we talked about it.
And talk with our guest. $1 million to a National Alliance affiliate, $300,000 to an Aryan Nations affiliate. The big one, $270,000 to what they called a Unite the Right leader. Okay, we'll be talking about.
This person, to my knowledge, has not been doxxed by anybody yet, but apparently this is somebody who was in the Unite the Right group chats and got, a huge amount of money from it. And this goes back to, I believe, 2015 is when the money first started flowing. So this is somebody who was working within white nationalist organizing from the beginning of what would then become the alt-right. That's who this person is.
About that a lot more as the show goes on. $140,000 to a former National Alliance chairman. If it was a former National Alliance chairman, that's a pretty short list, right? $73,000 to so-called KKK members, $19,000 to the American Front president. I don't even know who that is.
If you don't know who that is, that's James Edwards knows pretty much everybody.
Who is F-37? That's the name of the game.
That's the Unite the Right planning member. That's the designation within the legal document. He's called F-37.
Is what they are calling this person who was a so-called leader in the Unite the Right planning. He attended Unite the Right at the direction of the SPLC and made, quote, racist posts under their supervision. I can just see
Somehow I doubt he attended Unite the Right or helped to organize Unite the Right at the planning of the SPLC, maybe while being in the end being paid by the SPLC, but not under the direction, I think.
SPLC intern standing over the shoulder of this person as they make so-called racist tweets. What's going on? But
so-called racist tweets. I love it.
Just have the balls to admit that you're a bunch of racists.
Yeah, the so-called racist tweets just because we hate black people and think Jews run the world. Those are just objective truths, you see. They can't be racist if it's true. And then the next person he's going to call it is Mark Weber. This is Mark Weber, the person who runs the Institute of Historical Review, the IHR, the Active
Holocaust Denial Organization.
Yes, exactly. I told you we were going to get to Holocaust denial, but
As Mark Weber said in an email this week, because the SPLC moles are not government agents, we trust that their names and more will likely be made public. Here's what I don't like, and I got to make this quick because I don't want to take any of Keith's time in the next segment. I don't like that the DOJ is using the same terms as the SPLC itself: white supremacist and extremist.
I don't. The MAGA people should be on our side. Yes, exactly. This is the rift between these people. These guys have mainstream respectability, and they're using the same terms as the dreaded SPLC.
You shouldn't be criticizing the SPLC for funding us because we're good. You shouldn't be saying that we're bad.
To define some of these people, they're cucking a little bit there. And the alt-right and the MAGA tier conservative response has been abhorrent. Charlottesville was not staged or orchestrated by the SPLC. We know all the guys that were involved.
So do we, by the way.
This is it. This is it, isn't it? This is where the two approaches bump up against each other irreconcilably.
Yep.
Because MAGA want to say, oh, Charlottesville was all fake. It was all created by the SPLC and probably Jews as well, confecting the whole thing. Whereas these guys, that's an attack on their credibility.
Right. And we know the actual people. Like this is a small community.
No, we did it.
I know actual people who march. These people they're coming on my show tonight to talk about how terrible this is.
Now, because the SPLC had an informant in the mix, that means nothing. And these conservative incorporated types are saying that Charlottesville and Patriot Front and every other authentic, organized expression of white identity and activism that isn't kosher approved is now funded by the SPLC. These people are utterly contemptible.
Note the kosher approved there.
I caught that. Yeah.
Just wanted to call it out there. But notice that again, James Edwards is a terrible, but he's seeing things accurately, or mostly accurately, more accurately than than whatever Matt Walsh was spewing in the first bit that we did, because Matt Walsh knows the facts just about as well as James Edwards does. We know that because of the way that he espoused all the talking points during Heather Heyer at the end of the clip that I played you. He knows the truth, or somebody on his writing staff knows the truth at the very least. All these guys know what's really going on. They're just moving themselves relative to where they think they can get the biggest audience, or where they can express their political ideals with the most effort. And that's why we cover all of these guys now, because we have to, because they're all part of the same fucking ecosystem. That's the point of this.
And it's all over the place right now on social media. I swear to you, I have more respect in some ways, hear me now and understand me, in some ways for someone like Morris Dees than
the former head of the SPLC.
I do these people. Give me a cutthroat partisan that hates me and passionately wants to destroy Western civilization, then
right here.
Yeah, okay.
Right here, James. Here I am.
I don't know. We might argue about Western civilization, but that's another academic debate, I think. Based on what he calls Western civilization, I want to burn that shit to the ground. Yeah, no, absolutely.
These ignorant, milquetoast, kosher conservatives, I spew the lukewarm from my mouth. I'm not saying that I might not have more in common with these people than Potok and Byrick. I do. But in terms of war, I respect a committed enemy more than these people. I do. That said, there can be no mercy. If we ever get our enemies on their heels, there cannot be any mercy or forgiveness, not ever. But yes, the alt-right and the MAGA tier influencers do disgust me.
You're just masturbating in public now.
Pretty much, yeah. But yeah, no. And that's the end of my clips. That's all I have.
Well, yeah. Well, that run the gamut, didn't it?
Yeah, from kind of Nazi to overt Nazi. Yes, absolutely. I think one of the things I want to also highlight here is that, like, this is, while I think this why this indictment is probably not going to go anywhere real, and there's a possibility it does. It's entirely possible. We'll kind of find out as we kind of move through things, kind of see. But rhetorically, it will absolutely be used as a cudgel in their media and by the law enforcement agencies, local and federal, on all levels in the United States and probably abroad, to go after leftist organizers, to go after anti-fascist groups, to go after maybe even lowly little podcasters who might be saying the right thing for too long and connecting the right dots. It's entirely possible. I don't think that's likely, but there's certainly, depending on how aggressive that they go with this, The other thing that happened this week, or the week that we were prepping this, is the I guess the fourth attempted assassination of Donald Trump, third or fourth, at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And I was going to talk more about that and sort of the way that these guys use violence, kind of the rhetoric of violence. That is, the real violent ones are Antifa types, and the real violence are, the attempted Trump assassination that went nowhere. That this is real violence, and that the violence that we enact on migrants in the streets is not. And obviously we're all smart enough not to know that. I think we are also smart enough, people who hear the sound of my voice. I say this in no uncertain terms. This is not the way to impress me. Now, that kind of action is not going to ultimately, we have to think systematically and not personally. We have to think in terms of what is going to do the best work in terms of moving things forward in your area. And you're going to do a lot more work organizing your workplace, organizing your neighborhood, feeding the hungry, than doing anything that Jack Posobiec would call Antifa violence. And those are words that I mean from the bottom of my heart. I don't think that's a problem for any of us, but I did just want to highlight that the label of political violence is coming more and more for all of us, and we all have to think very carefully about how we want to respond to that. At least here in the United States, things are probably going to get worse before they get better. And this indictment is as ludicrous as this is on its face, and where I think it's not really going to go anywhere, mostly because the SPLC has millions of dollars to afford really nice lawyers. Not everybody does, and you only have
unlike
the Prairieland case,
the Prairieland defendants,
exactly, who were doing nothing.
Essentially
nothing.
protesting.
Protesting.